The poem this week on Dale Byron on Poetry, the featured poem is The Great Los Angeles Fires, which of course tells exactly what the theme of this week's podcast is. Let's get right into the poem. It begins with a quote at the top of the poem. The cracks in our private systems grow widest in times of public need. And the poem goes like this. Picture thousands of everyday sanctuaries suddenly succumbing to the storms of fire, each leaving only a thin scattering of ash. A family fleeing with frightened dogs in a soon useless and abandoned car, flooded with adrenaline, their bulging veins burning from the inside out. Men trained never to cry, crying anyway. Faces streaked with soot, gathering terrible sights, sounds, smells, the kind therapy may one day try to untangle. Witness the poison-laden air, breathing in its dark regrets, the killing plumes of heaven knows what, burning, rising, floating into newly dangerous clouds. All while we observe the structured brilliance of each not-for-profit, passionate firefighter, their community-spirited hearts on full display, fingers worked to bone. While citizens' furies flare, grieving survivor tragedy soon noted on spreadsheets as fine printed contracts hiss like snakes, the small print saying, we cannot pay. And our broken hearts, growing ever more tender, quietly whispering, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Souls crushed by this grinding, gaping cracks appear to receive this, our river of tears. And our broken hearts growing ever more tender, quietly whispering, I am so sorry. Souls crushed by this grinding, gaping cracks appear to receive this, our river of tears. So, like so many people, I have dear friends who are in the Los Angeles area. And like so many people, my heart has been broken with this ongoing news that at this recording is not actually completed. There's still the tragedy unfolding. Now, poetry has long been a tool for we human beings to try to make sense out of great catastrophe and loss. And this is exactly what I was doing this week to try to make sense myself with my own writing. The note I made for myself, and of course, the theme for this year's podcast is making life a little better with poetry. And in this case, how can we make a catastrophe and the grieving and the loss a little easier to bear? A little easier to bear. And I said, of all the things poems can do, one of them is to help us grieve and make sense of the senseless, to ever so imperfectly and haltingly attempt to acknowledge and honor our feelings, to find the metaphors, the images, the words, the sounds to help us heal. Sometimes, many times, I look for such poems and find them. Sometimes I write one myself. Now, of course, the people who are directly involved, the people who have lost homes, who have lost loved ones, and the people who have been most in the path of this destruction are, of course, going to require the greatest healing. The greatest healing. And perhaps poetry can offer even the smallest solace in these times. I said, no one in our culture is immune from destructive, dysfunctional stories. And if at the heart of what's going on, one of the great tragedies that I was trying to tease out in this poem is that there are bigger, huge stories which are up underneath this that have to do with, if we go way back upriver, what is the causes? And there are many of them, but certainly one of the causes of this tragedy is the ongoing ecological crisis that we have going on. There's no doubt about that. That is part of the crisis, part of the drought, the long drought that's happening there, part of the reason that the winds have been significantly stronger and the fire significantly more intense. Many, many reasons, but it's very complex. And the point that I made is that if a culture, if we're living inside a dysfunctional story, and we are in many ways, our economic stories, our cultural stories, I said, because such stories invariably create equally dysfunctional and toxic structures or systems in which we all live. Even so-called short-term winners are diminished in these systems, though for a time it looks as if they're winning. We are all responsible. There is no one essentially to blame. Awareness is curative. We need to see the systems that we've created for ourselves, built on belief, built on assumptions. And if those stories are no longer working, from my humble perspective, we need to begin to change and shift those stories. I've talked a lot about that on this podcast, to begin to reorient ourselves as being not above or superior to the natural world, but part of it, of the natural world. I think that's the only kind of story that's going to help us move into this new era. So, our broken hearts growing ever more tender, quietly whispering, I am so sorry. Souls crushed by this grinding, gaping cracks appear to receive this, our river of tears. Thank you so much for your listening ear. Until next time and next poems, please take good care of yourself.